Bridget, thanks for joining the program.
Thank you, Josh. I appreciate it. And thank you again for always having our office and our partners. Um, I'm glad to be back and giving you today's update, but I'm not so glad about the news that I'm bringing. This warm and dry trend has continued for Wisconsin over the past couple of weeks, as I know you are all well aware of, as folks were talking about before the meeting started. It's very dry out there. And since the last Badger Crop Connect update 2 weeks ago, precipitation has been practically non-existent, with less than a tenth of an inch of rain for a majority of the state. North central and far southeastern Wisconsin saw just a few more showers than the rest of the state, but really not much in the grand scheme of things. And this kind of places everyone at least an inch below the 30-year average for this 2 week time frame, so September 25th to October 7th. But more notably, that's just 7% of our normal or average rainfall again for this 2 week time frame. So we are really just bone dry out there. And in addition, the last 2 weeks have been quite warm for this time of year. So the state averaged about 55 to 65 degrees, and that's about 5 to 7 degrees above normal again for this 2 week time frame. However, things have been cooling down at night, allowing for at least a good portion of northern Wisconsin to see 32 degrees and even some hard freezes over in Vilas, Forest, and Washburn counties. Now, in terms of impacts, the severe lack of precipitation has greatly intensified drought as there are 30, 60, and 90-day precipitation deficits. Just over the last month, over the last 30 days, northern and far southwestern Wisconsin have faced 2.5 to 3.5 inch deficits. Over the last 60 days, deficits are largely 2 to 5 inches, with Door County taking a real big hit at 5 to 6 inches. And then over the last 90 days or 3 months, northern and southwestern Wisconsin are both much, much below normal, about 4 to 8 inches below normal, and even central and southeastern Wisconsin are also a few inches below our normal. And then these precipitation deficits over such a long time have really placed much of Wisconsin and parts of northern Wisconsin, parts of south central Wisconsin, and far southwestern Wisconsin in D1 or moderate drought. And furthermore, because of the lack of precipitation going way back to July, northeastern Wisconsin is in D2 or severe drought. So that real orange color here. And this may even start spreading to north central Wisconsin, if the deficits keep up, if we continue to see little rain, little to no rain. Another way to assess drought conditions is by the Drought Severity and Coverage Index here on the right. And so the DSCI converts drought levels to a single value by considering both severity and spatial extent from this US Drought Monitor map. And while we're nowhere close to last year's conditions, these are the most pronounced drought conditions in the state since April, with a beginning of October DSCI value of 1.2. So this is pretty remarkable, at least, con compared to the past few months. And as you are all working in the fields, as again, people were talking about earlier, soil dryness is very noticeable. Both at 20 inches and 4 inches, things are dry and things are dusty across the state. And these dry conditions are quite extreme. I didn't put the map up this time, but we can look at soil moisture percentiles from 0 to 100 centimeters. And much of the state is within or below the 30th percentile for soil moisture and even below the 10th percentile for Door County and the far northwest as well. Additionally, temperatures have stayed warm, and soils are mostly above 50 degrees, at least for the past few days and couple weeks, which is just something to keep in mind if you are someone who applies fertilizer, specifically nitrogen fertilizer. And so, as a result of these continued hot and dry conditions, there have been significant advances in corn maturity and soybean harvest over the last few weeks. I read that about 75% of the corn crop was mature. That's at least as of the latest USDA NASS report. And that 75% is, I think it said 1 day ahead of the 5-year average. Corn grain or corn for grain still has very moisture levels and was just about 10% harvested as of the recent report, which is just a couple of days ahead of the 5-year average. However, corn for silage was 80% harvested, which is, I think, 5 days ahead of the 5-year average. In terms of soybeans, soybean harvest is about 61% complete, which is well ahead of the 5-year average. However, I did hear reports from southwestern Wisconsin that soybeans are coming in smaller, some maybe even as small as BBs, and soil moisture level, or not soil moisture, soybean moisture levels were just, I think, 9 to 11% is what I was hearing. And so that's creating some concerns about the potential for shattering during harvest. Additionally, not about corn and soybeans, but I've also read that cranberries, potatoes, and various vegetable harvests are also going well. And other field activities the past couple of weeks have included manure spreading and fall tillage. And so if we take a quick peek at the outlook, the forecast is once again calling for little rain. I will say there is a low pressure system that may swoop far enough south this weekend and bring us some rain, but it's still a little too far out to tell where exactly that system will hit and how much will fall. But keep that in mind, keep an eye on the forecast. Mid-month looks much of the same, where we will very likely see warmer than normal conditions and drier than normal temperature or drier than normal precipitation. And I know I alluded to this a little bit when we were talking about drought, but I just wanted to mention that with the below normal precipitation expected for the rest of the month, drought is likely to persist and may even expand spatially and with intensity. And in addition, with the rapidly drying conditions mixed with windier days, we need to be real cautious about the risk of fire, especially as we get equipment out in the fields and the very dry fields. And so around the end of fall and early winter, things are showing no strong signal at this time of whether or how temperature will deviate from normal. So that's why this map just looks white instead of color on it. Precipitation signals are also slightly mixed with the potential for above normal precipitation for the eastern and northern parts of the state and equal chances for above, near, or below normal conditions to the west. Finally, just a reminder that you can check out the Wisconsin Ag Climate Outlook for a more complete summary. I think the next outlook should be posted tomorrow. And other than that, that's all from me. Thank you again so much for your time and invitation. And if anyone has any questions or comments, I'll stick around for something that comes up in the chat. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Bridget. And